It's the amazing Rico Brogna podcast with your host, Evan Roberts.
Frustrating New York Mets loss at Citi Field. I'm in my car getting out of the parking lot. This was a game that featured a lot of things that I can very well bitch about the manager with, or bitch about the manager, some of the decisions he made. Sorry, my words aren't going to make sense because I do always want to make sure that I'm very safe and not hitting anybody, and also making sure that I follow the security guards' signals when they tell me to drive, because sometimes their hands are confusing. They say drive, and I'm like, but if I drive, I'm going to hit somebody. And then they say wait. I'm like, why am I waiting? There's nobody around. But as I drive out of the parking lot of Citi Field, there are a couple of thoughts that I have. Thought number one is this team, and we've seen this quite a bit this season despite the good start, this team had one of those days with runners in scoring position that make you grab your hair out. From the beginning of this game, the first inning was a real tone setter. Corbin Burnes did not have his best command. That was clear. And they have a golden opportunity early in this game to jump all over Corbin Burnes, and they end up with nothing. And it was certainly frustrating because you figured in a game in which you're starting Huascar Brazaban, you're using Brandon Waddell as a bulk guy, God knows about the rest of your bullpen, you figure you're going to need to score a lot of runs today. That was what I figured. Now, little did I know that the Mets' voodoo tricks of their pitching lab continue to run wild because they pitched extremely well until the very end. But that first inning, that bottom of the first inning, was a real warning sign about what this game would be. And clearly the ending of the game followed the same suit when you're down by 2 runs and you load up the bases with nobody out. So the obvious is this continued to be a major trend through all 9 innings. Get opportunities, do nothing with it outside of a solo home run that Mark Vientos hit. As far as the pitching is concerned, obviously Brandon Waddell was outstanding. Huascar Brazaban, we'll start with him, was outstanding. Gets the first 6 outs. I wasn't sure if Mendy was going to go batter to batter in the second inning, but he allowed him to get through the 2. He goes to Brandon Waddell. Was it 2? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I guess it was 2 full innings. And then Waddell comes in and does an absolutely outstanding job. There was some hard contact, but for the most part, he threw strikes. He showed a lot of poise, especially for a guy that hadn't been in the major leagues in 4.5 years. He was great. Let me get right to the bitching of Mendy. I wanted to start off with the lack of hitting with runners in scoring position, because obviously that's why they lost. I mean, you go 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position, that's a problem. Juan Soto left the country on base. Obviously the opportunities in the 9th inning, that goes without saying. But what annoyed me about Mendy, there's a few things. Number one, I didn't love taking Waddell out when he did. He was about to face Gabby Moreno with 1 out and nobody on in the 7th inning. And Moreno had gotten a hit off of him earlier in the game, so maybe that was the thought, that he didn't like Waddell facing him for a second time. But why am I in a rush if I'm Carlos Mendoza to go to my bullpen? When I've got a guy, a bulk starter, I've got a 1-0 lead at this point. Why am I in any kind of rush to go to the bullpen? That's issue kind of half an issue. Because I also get it. It's Brandon Waddell. His pitch count was at 60. You're skeptical he's going to be able to get Gab Moreno out. You're skeptical he's going to keep this going. So, all right, why don't you get him out, 1 out, nobody on? You want to give your reliever a relatively clean inning. Then my second question to the manager would be, why is Ryan Stanek, who absolutely shit the bed twice in the last 5 days, why is he the first guy out of the bullpen? You got a guy in Reed Garrett who, if I'm not mistaken, because I don't have any papers in front of me, so I'm doing this by memory. You got a guy in Reed Garrett who hasn't pitched since the 2nd game of the Washington series. A guy in Reed Garrett, by the way, who's not allowed an earned run this season, so he's pitched to a 0 ERA, who's been incredible at stranding inherited runners, probably pound for pound, their best relief pitcher. So it's a 1-0 game. It's the 7th inning with 1 out. Reed Garrett's also a guy that very well may not just get me those last 2 outs. I could piece together some outs in the 8th inning from Garrett as well. So I don't love taking Waddell out. That's issue number 1 with Mendy. And issue number 2 is, if you're going to take him out, why the hard-on for Ryan Stanek? The good kind of hard-on, where you like the guy. I don't understand that. And so let's do this as I drive home. I'm making the big turn on Northern Boulevard. I think that's the boulevard. I had an emailer in the Rico B email, I apologize, who was not happy with some of my descriptions when we do the drive home, saying you're very inaccurate with the highways you're on. I know what you're talking about, but you're wrong. You're inaccurate about the streets you're on. So all I know is I got out of the parking lot, I made a left, and now I made a right, and I'm going underneath the Whitestone Expressway, if that's even the right name. Maybe it's not. I've lived in New York basically my entire life. I grew up on Long Island. My dad drove to Shea Stadium all the time. I then lived in Maryland for 3.5 years, whatever the hell it was. I come back, I live in Brooklyn, I live in Queens for over a decade. I moved to Westchester. You would think I would know these roads like the back of my hand. And I do, I just don't know the freaking names. I'm an idiot, so I apologize. Anyhow, what the hell was I saying? Oh yeah, so issue number 2. Oh no, here's the issue. Here's what I want to do. I want to impeach Ryan Stanek from the Circle of Trust. That's over. Now, the beautiful thing about the Circle of Trust impeachment is that while you may be thrown out of the circle, it is not permanent, especially with bullpenners. You very well can earn your right back into the Circle of Trust. But for right now, as we enter the month of May, I do not want to see, unless my bullpen is just savaged by not injury, but though injuries are starting to pile up now, Danny Young on the IL. But unless everyone's unavailable because they had pitched in previous days. So unless there's some kind of emergency, I don't want Ryan Stanek anywhere near a close game. And 1-0 in the 6th inning is a close game. And let's be fair about this, he's also very lucky that he didn't give up more than 2 runs. Because Tawa hit a line drive in which Tyrone Taylor, who has clearly been the Rico, you're the man now star of this series. He's been awesome, offensively and defensively. Tyrone Taylor bailed his beautiful blonde-haired ass out by making that diving play. So issue number 2 was going to Ryan Stanek instead of Reed Garrett. Let's get to issue number 3. All right, you want to go to Chris Davinsky in the 8th inning, who they just called up because Danny Young is injured. All right. You know what? It's a 2-1 game. It's the 8th inning. Let's see what this guy's got. And Davinsky does a good job. Gives up a 2-out double. Gets through it. I don't have a problem with that. But then you have Edwin Diaz warming up, right? He's warming up in a 2-1 game as the Mets are again teasing us in the bottom of the 8th inning. I mean, they basically teased us all night, or the 7th inning. I forget what. I mean, every inning they teased us. Didn't they basically have a base runner in every inning of this game? They certainly had runners in scoring position quite often. So I don't have the scorecard in front of me, obviously. I am driving very responsibly. I'm about to make a left on another street I don't know the name of. This is my kind of secret way out where I avoid potential traffic on the highway. Oh, Linden Place. I make my left on and then I join the highway. But he has Edwin Diaz warming up to potentially pitch in a tie game or with the lead, or in the scenario that ended up being the case, pitching in a 2-1 game. Why not go to him? Why are we sticking with Chris Davinsky, who is a minor leaguer until 12 hours ago? Why? I don't understand that. It's a 2-1 game. Your offense has been this close all day long, and you're squeezing another inning out of Davinsky. Now, if Diaz had been worked a lot recently, I would say, you're trying to save your bullpen. It sucks. It's not that you're punting the game by any stretch, but you're managing to the longer season than you are, hey, I want to win this game. But if you've got Diaz warming up, you had Garrett warming up earlier in the game as well. So 2 of your better relievers were warming up, and you didn't go to them in a game in which, yes, now you're losing, but it's a 2-1 game. I don't fully understand that sometimes with managers. Like 1-run lead, 2-run lead, you'll go to one of your best relievers. You're down by a run. You're in your own building. You have to feel, especially if you're a confident guy, and I think Mendy is, hey, my offense will eventually break out. My offense will eventually click. So why am I going to Chris Davinsky for a 2nd inning? And that turned into a disaster. It turned into really the difference in the game. I understand that the game's managed differently. The strategies are different in the 9th inning if it's 2-1 or 3-1 versus 4-1. But nevertheless, I hated it. So I have been, rarely have I criticized Carlos Mendoza, and it's not just because they're winning a lot. If you listen to the Rico Brogna, you know, even in wins, I'll sometimes criticize moves I don't like. I didn't like any of these bullpen moves, not one. I didn't like pulling Waddell. I didn't like going to Ryan Stanek again, 3rd time now in basically a half a week in which he spit the bit. I did not like pushing Davinsky for a second inning. So great, Reed Garrett and Edwin Diaz are fresh for tomorrow or for Thursday or for Friday or for whatever the hell day we're up to. But you hurt your chances in winning this game, game 2 of this 3-game series, by not using them when they're clearly available and they're rested. So I didn't like the bullpen issues. But obviously, it starts with the offense. It starts with the fact that this team just could not buy a big hit all night long. I know there's a lot of angst towards Juan Soto, and to a degree there should be. You know, when he lines the ball 110 miles an hour at a right fielder, it's tough to get annoyed. But when he's up in a spot in which the stadium feels it and senses it, a potential magical moment, and I got no issue with him swinging 3-0. You know, when Juan Soto swings 3-0, I think we went over this after opening day, I think his career batting average is .445. So he's productive swinging 3-0. I have to fact check that. I could be wrong about that. But he missed it, and he popped up to left field. And I don't know if people were booing. I couldn't tell because I was sitting next to a guy who was booing. But that guy is a professional troll in Sean Morash, so he was booing as a, I don't know, as a Yankee fan trying to get under Met fan skins, I guess, or as someone that made an anytime Soto home run bet. But that was obviously a very disappointing moment. But what I don't understand from my fellow brethren is I get being upset about 0 for 4. I mean, I'm with you on that. Juan Soto's got to wake up. We all know that. We all want to see him hit. We all know he's got to hit, and I think most of us realize eventually he will hit. But the one thing I don't understand, sorry, I'm out of red light, so I'm trying to fix my beautiful camera for those that are consuming on the YouTube. There you go. It may not last, but we'll give it a try. How are you mad at him for drawing a walk in the 9th inning? I had a guy sit next to me, or behind me, or maybe when I was walking out, who's saying $800 million for a walk. I mean, they're down by 2 runs in the 9th inning. Sure, I'd love a 2-run home run, but I'm not going to complain about a walk, bringing up Pete Alonso. I'm not going to complain about that. So you want to be upset about 0 for 4. You obviously have a right to be. We all are upset about 0 for 4. We all know Soto's got to hit. We're all waiting for that majestic Met moment that has not happened yet. But I ain't going to complain about him walking. He walked to bring the lead run to the plate in the bottom of the 9th inning with Pete Alonso. The problem is, after Alonso got drilled, and I'm going to take a baseball prayer for him, hopefully he's okay, because I'm sure that is going to balloon up. That's going to bruise up, get hit in the hand like that. You've got the bases loaded and nobody out, down by 2 runs. You've got Ryan Thompson in the game because Justin Martinez couldn't get an out. That's on everybody else. Look, you want to bitch about Soto earlier in the game, fine. You want to bitch about 3-0, fly out to left field, fair game. But the one thing I'm not going to do is bitch about a walk that set up what could have been a potential rally in the bottom of the 9th inning. As far as Winker is concerned, from my vantage point, I thought he fouled it off his foot. Clearly, Jesse Winker's reaction made it seem like he fouled it off his foot. Unfortunately, it's one of those scenarios. It's not reviewable. So if you're Carlos Mendoza, all you can do is back your player up. You can come out. You can yell a little bit. What was Jesse Winker going to do if he was being given a reprieve? I have no idea. Do I have confidence he was going to drill a double up the alley and win the game? Probably not. I was surprised Jeff McNeil didn't end the game with a weak pop-up to second base. He drew the walk, or basically drew the walk. They put him on after Thompson fell behind 3-1, and then you got Alvarez. And look, this is a big year for Francisco Alvarez and a big moment for Francisco Alvarez because this is now his 3rd full year. The expectations are high for him. He's also the guy, let's not forget, who during spring training prior to his injury said, we got the best offense in baseball. And what I said at the time, whether it was on the Rico or on the Fan, was I don't mind confidence from the guys who have backed it up. Francisco Alvarez has a lot to prove. He's had moments. Walk-off home run against the Orioles, great. He's had some moments, but he's not exactly the guy that can speak confidently or speak with the resume of, yeah, we got the best offense in baseball. Well, Francisco, bases loaded, 2 out, down by a run. You had a chance to have a moment. He failed. He fell behind in the count 0-2. I was kind of surprised he didn't chase a slider in the dirt on 0-2. He laid off and then finally grounds out the Suarez ball game over. it's not all on him, obviously. It's on everybody. This was a collective fail when it comes to runners in scoring position. And this team is playing great. It's only their second loss at home. It's the first loss I've experienced at Citi Field. I do apologize for bringing Sean Morash. He's probably to blame. But like I said after the loss on Sunday, 21-10 is fantastic. And I'm thrilled and I'm excited and I'm happy. But it is still okay as a human and as a baseball fan to be frustrated when you lose a game like this, when you lose a game like Sunday, when you blow a 7-1 lead, when you lose a game like this where you're 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position, where your best player continues to kind of rut. It looked like he was breaking out of it. Now he's slowed down on this homestand. He's still looking for his first Citi Field home run. It's okay to be frustrated when you criticize the manager's decision, basically every bullpen decision he made. This was a frustrating loss. So, take the series on Thursday, obviously. They've got a chance to do it with a refreshed Kodai Senga. The Bats are also coming off of scoring 27 runs in 2 games. So I get that. But that was a very frustrating loss at Citi Field. Hopefully they can bounce back. Hopefully the Bats can wake up. Hopefully Mark Vientos doesn't tailspin, striking out in his last 2 at-bats. And hopefully they can get Juan Soto going. They're about to go on the road again. It's a weird kind of stretch right now, a 3-game homestand before they go back to go to St. Louis and then play the Diamondbacks again, this time in Phoenix. It would be nice. It would be nice on a Thursday afternoon in a rubber game with the Mets trying to avoid losing a series. They haven't lost many this season, only 2, and both of them have been on the road. It would be nice for Soto to at least get that moment, to at least break out of it, drive in a couple of runs, have a 3-hit game, and go out on the road feeling good, because he is a human. So you have to wonder if any of this is getting to him mentally. He had a good series in Washington in terms of getting base hits and getting on base, but he didn't drive in any runs, and obviously is scuffling a little bit as they've returned home to Citi Field. A couple of news and notes. Danny Young to the IL. This is not ideal, not having a lefty out of the bullpen. There really isn't much you can do other than sign David Robertson. We read an email about that in our previous Rico Brogna. If you missed it, we discussed Steve Cohen's recent comments and the Game 1 victory. The suggestion of, hey, just sign Dave Robertson. I know he's not a lefty, but he gets lefties out. Not a terrible idea. This bullpen is showing a crack. This bullpen is showing a weakness. And you want to know why the bullpen's showing a weakness? Because as we've learned with bullpens, they are incredibly inconsistent from day to day, week to week. And I don't know how good this bullpen truly is overall. I believe in the closer. Reed Garrett's off to a great start, but obviously Buteau has struggled. He's had his issues. And now Ryan Stanek has clearly had his issues as he has now been evicted from the circle of trust. Either way, big Thursday afternoon game. We will have a Rico Brogna sometime after the game concludes, probably at night. So if you consume us live on YouTube, expect it sometime Thursday night. If you download us, it'll be in your inbox, ready to go Friday morning as we recap the 3-game series against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Outside of the loss, it was a nice night at Citi Field. Beautiful weather. Again, the energy was great. There were Yankee fans sitting next to me, not just Sean Morash, but there were 2 girls, both wearing Yankee jerseys. In fact, one of them had a Yankee 99 jersey with the last name Judgina. 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 Like Aaron Judge, but Judgina. So that was interesting. But the electricity and the vibes are good. Unfortunately, it ends in a frustrating way with a bases-loaded ground out by Mark Vientos. Anyhow, I am on my way home. No traffic, thank God. And I appreciate you listening and downloading a drive-home edition of Rico Brogna.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Rico Brogna podcast. It's amazing, isn't it? Make sure you download it now to keep it on you at all times.